Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power T Talk. From the Cathedral of Neyland Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, and the pride of the Southland. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zach. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the T. It's time to give our all for Tennessee. This is Power T Talk. Rick Barnes' 850th win, just a casual, no sweat road win in the SEC for a team that plays the exact same every time out. Actually, that last part might be true. They do seem to kind of play the exact same every time out. They have an identity, and it's a really weird identity.
The identity is make it as ugly as possible.
Yeah, the identity is like there are high school JV coaches out there who are going to eat this tape up to tell people to go get 4 fouls and 11 rebounds. And they're not wrong, but we want to see some other things as well.
2 road wins. And this team desperately needed them.
Both of them.
So I am going to take a positive tone. But that was an ugly-ass basketball game that we just watched. And Saturday, outside of Nate and Met, was not exactly pretty either. Even though the Make-A-Wish Foundation letting Charles Bediako play that game was very touching.
Interesting. I didn't realize that was that judge's last name, Make-A-Wish, but hey.
Yes, no, it was very nice that we let the 23-year-old get a shot again. We'll talk later about that. It was not a pretty basketball game. We're recording this here Wednesday night right after the game. Estrella played his best game as a Vol. That's like the biggest takeaway. He looked like an SEC big tonight. He played like a man. 8 of 11 from the floor. You're talking 9 rebounds, 7 of those offensive. Him and Okpara had 14 offensive rebounds. Daniel, Tennessee offensive rebounded 56.5% of their shots tonight. 26 offensive rebounds. Georgia had 27. 27. And it's not like Tennessee was hitting a bunch of shots either. It's not like Tennessee did shoot 45% tonight.
We were talking during the game, and I like so many of the things that we do as a basketball team are like, if you just glanced at the stat sheet middle of the second half, you'd be like, okay, they clearly have scoring. They're hitting a couple shots here and there. Oh my gosh, look at those rebounding numbers. They've got to be up 17. And they're never up by 17. They're never up by 17. There was a small moment in the second half of this game where Nate started to play really well. He was in the flow. He made a couple shots. I think brought us back even, and then we were ahead. And then I think it was on Amari Evans, the player control foul after he made the pass.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thought that was a really frustrating call. And I think we were up 3 at the time, and then it kind of just like settled things down and brought everything back to even, and they were finding their way to the bucket, and Okpara wasn't affecting shots a ton, partially because he was in a little bit of foul trouble and didn't want to get that 4th or 5th. But I almost texted you, there's times where Nate is just better than everybody else on the floor.
Sure.
And he has little stretches like that, but it's either the team doesn't compliment him where we just don't have that dagger 3 off of Nate's action, or when Nate starts to flow, the rest of the offense doesn't flow. It's like they're waiting for the ball to get back to him. And that really leads to stagnancy. And it's Jalen Carey didn't have his best game, but the personality of Jalen Carey, and then really tonight, the personality of JP Estrella to say, like, I just will not be denied. I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to score. He had a little bit of touch on his shot tonight. That really let us hang in and played big in overtime as well.
Well, the other thing with Nate is really bad first half. I mean, he was 1 of 7 in the first half, and he bounced back and ended up. I mean, 7 of 18 is not pretty, but he did go 2 of 5 from three, hit a massive three in the corner in overtime. That you could probably say was the dagger, even though Georgia had the ball with the last possession, which was an hilarious possession.
Interesting.
That yeah, and not good decision making there. So that was a positive. I I don't know. Gillespie is just, I looked at the stats. I'm like, he was 7 of 19. I was like, man, it felt like he hit a bunch more shots tonight than that. And that you're just going to have stuff like that because he just has to. He has to put up 20 shots a game. The turnovers were better, only 12 tonight. The offense, it just feels like a lot of it. I mean, there was one possession where they're still talking to Rick. Literally, Nate turns his back on the play to talk to Rick with like 10 seconds on the shot clock. And it wasn't like Rick was like, what are you doing either? Rick was talking to him. So there's just times where they just do not get anything going in their action. I mean, they tried to run a play with like 7 seconds on the
Yeah, I
shot
saw
clock
that.
at one point. I can't remember, it was late. And you're just like, and like Rick's yelling at Gillespie, and Gillespie kind of barked back at him, like, we didn't start the play till 7 seconds. What do you want me to do? And it just seems like there's not, you mentioned this when we talked in text. A lot of these side actions they do has no purpose. And then about 5 minutes later, they had one that opened up, and I think was it what Boswell threw it right at Parsons.
Yes.
But these side actions aren't doing anything, and it's literally just run this half-assed offense for 20 seconds and then get some going for Gillespie or Nate, which I understand that Rick wants to play slower with this team, and that's probably smart with how many offensive rebounds they get, but it would be nice to see easier buckets at some point.
Yeah, we just need those little, like, the couple of possessions in a row that made me say that were like, not that we have these amazing finishers everywhere on the offense, but there were 2 times in a row where Boswell is cutting and he's open. Like, he has position
Mm-hmm.
on his guy. He is cutting towards the middle of the lane. It is the exact action you want. A relatively easy pass to him. He catches it with his left in stride and probably shoots a righty finger roll. He's going to make that shot.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he gets fouled, and we can talk about we're not perfect at the line, but like, let him foul us. Let him get us in the double bonus. And every single time we go to the line, it's 2 shots. The announcers kept talking about fouling Okpara late, and it's like, you can do that all you want. It's not that he's going to miss the front end of a 1-1. Like, once we're in the double bonus, I'm a little less worried about it. And we need around Nate and Gillespie, we have to have these filler buckets, or we're never, ever going to get up. Like we talked about, we're never going to get up by 17 unless we start to have those moments where, yeah, Nate or Jacoby's hot, and then someone else goes for 9, someone else goes for 14. And it doesn't really seem like that's happening. Boswell ended up with 13. I don't know if that's a season high or not. He had 13 and 10. I thought he played really well, but he could have had
Mm-hmm. He did.
19. I mean, I really
Right.
do think he could have had 19 and then been a little bit more in the flow and probably gotten to the stripe a couple more times. And so I think you made the proper cap tip to Estrella, who just said, like, doesn't matter if I'm in the flow of the offense, I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to put it in the bucket. And it,
Mm-hmm.
on actually kind of fittingly, late in the game, late in the overtime, Boswell, late in the shot clock, took essentially a wild falling forward shot, and JP just got I don't even know if it'd be
Right.
considered an offensive board at that point, but just got the ball, and it kind of sealed the game, and then their last possession did it. I don't know. I didn't have a specific problem with a specific player as much as it was just like, some of these offensive actions can't just be coasting through the lane and then swinging it around the perimeter back to fill in the blank on Nate or Jacoby every time.
Alabama, against Alabama, 53 of the 79 points they scored were Gillespie and men in that game. And no one else scored more than 8. Boswell had 8. Now, I thought it was a positive sign. Boswell did take, uh, you know, 3 threes today. He did take 8 shots and get 6 free throws. Like, they need that. Like, that's important, especially when Jalen Carey's going 0 for 4. I mean, it was brutal. Carey had a brutal game today. And I still don't know. It is very, very odd after watching the last 4 years with Tennessee basketball. Rick doesn't know his rotation. He knows he has to play Gillespie 37 minutes a game, and he knows he's got to play Nate 35. He's going to play Boswell 30 at least. He still doesn't know what's going to happen 4 through 9. Amari Abram played, I think, 10 minutes against Bama. He played 3 tonight. Dwayne Brown got 5 minutes against Bama. He got 12. Amari Evans is starting to get more consistent minutes. So, like, that's one thing I'd look. He's starting to get about 10. But, I mean, even Estrella tonight, he got 31. I'd imagine that's a career high for him by a decent amount. And he got 26. So, I mean, that's good that Estrella looks like he's going to be the starter and get 25, 30 minutes. But even still, like, Rick does not know consistently what he's going to get from his bench. He doesn't have anyone off the bench that he trusts other than, like, I know Evans and Brown are going to play their asses off. Like, and Carey will get me some rebounds. So I think that's part of it because they just rely on Jacoby so much. So my joke on the text, but I call it the help me Obi-Wan Jacoby offense.
Honestly,
like that's what it's basically been. You're our only hope to get a bucket. It's frustrating at times, and they still won 2 games, 2 SEC road games. Bama's going to be a tournament team. Georgia's on the bubble, so I can't really bitch too much about it. And they play their asses off on defense. They're not perfect, but they've done well. And I mean, I thought Estrella, I get it. He's going to get out toughed a couple times just because he's not very strong. But man, I thought he was the MVP tonight. I think he really grew up in this game. And you just got to get it for Nate. As I mentioned, that second half was really good from him, even if he did miss a couple shots. And you kind of wonder, could this team improve? And I think there's lanes to it. I just don't think there's a ton of improvement left unless Ament just plays like he did against Alabama in the second half tonight consistently.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't think Georgia's the best barometer for this, but in the overtime session especially, and that's a very unique type of basketball, but they kind of made Georgia – it was the first time all night where they seemed like they made Georgia do what they wanted Georgia to do defensively. Mm-hmm. Like Georgia wanted to do that little half-court trap, but then Tennessee took advantage of that to start the offense further out. And at first I was a little worried about that, but they basically just found the corner. They found it one time with Jacoby, who missed the shot, but then the other time with Nate. And it's like, all of our offensive flaws, if you're going to let us kind of leisurely pass the ball to Jacoby or Nate in the corner and have somebody having to fly at them to block a shot, you're going to have a hard time defensively against us because they're going to make that shot a decent amount. And we're so good at offensive rebounding that if you're already stretched out and you're guarding Boswell near half court, we're going to get that offensive rebound. And so there are times where you can see how they could stress teams out, but they don't always get to those actions. And it's a very different world when you've got it spread out and you've got a guy running to the corner and he's able to pump fake and then everybody gets in position for an offensive rebound if he misses versus starting the offensive action with 9 seconds on the shot clock with a handoff and everybody's crunched in and you're really having to hope you get an offensive rebound at that point. Very different worlds that we're living in, and one looks amazing and the other is what we see a lot more often. And so I still love their toughness. I love their defense. I liked that they got in the press at the end of the game to make them speed up a little bit, make them think about it a little bit. I don't know. It was very surprising to me that their point guard made that mistake at the end of the game. Who knows if they would have checked up a 3 and made it. But this was a decent team. Alabama's obviously a good team, and both of those were on the road. Never going to complain about it, but I'm just not sure what the path is to like volume of points overall, which is a weird feeling.
I will say they were pretty bad in the interior tonight defensively. I think I'm going to surprise you with this. Georgia was 22 of 33 from 2-point land today.
Dang. Honestly, the funny thing is, I absolutely would have said that they were hot from 3 because it seemed like they made some late in the shot clock or they made some fuck you ones when we were on a run, and it was the total opposite.
Well, they made 3 that when Tennessee either tied or took the lead in that like 15 to 10 minute mark. I texted you about it. I was so frustrated. But I mean, yeah, they got to be a little better on the interior. I think Akpara, man, when he gets in foul trouble, it just feels like that defense changes completely. And without Phillips, that's also part of it. Phillips just doesn't, like, he's so good at cutting off driving lanes and especially against bigger wing players. He was so good at that, and he could switch. They don't have that right now, but I think it's offensively actually been better for them. So I will say that, but 9 of 28 from three, like you're going to live with that in the SEC, in my opinion. And they only gave up 20 free throws. Now Georgia only had 6 turnovers, and that's just something where this team's not going to do is force turnovers. 12 turnovers, I think I'll live with in this game. So I don't know. And again, we need to mention, like, we're probably having a different tone after the Alabama game, where they played fantastic
Yeah.
in a situation, in a hostile environment that was really, really unique. And again, 2 SEC road wins. You cannot complain about SEC road wins in this conference.
Yeah, and
It's overall, you take it, and you almost could feel with these 2 wins, they've clinched a berth. I thought at 12-6, I'm like, man, they lose these 2 games, all of a sudden the bubble talk changes for
it's
them.
real.
It's real, and by winning these 2 games, assuming they don't tank, and I'd be shocked if that happened under Rick, they basically, I think, clinched a tournament berth, barring a disaster.
They can absolutely win the next 2. It's home against Auburn, home against Ole Miss. We mapped it out last podcast where we said, like, we're going to learn a lot, and then we're going to go to Lexington. And so if we win the next 2 and then we go to Lexington and they've got revenge on their mind for a Kentucky team that looks pretty darn beatable, we just weren't able to do it. I'm okay with that world. I think they would go in there with a decent amount of confidence and with some revenge on their mind. Did you have any other thoughts on the game, or what did you think of the Akpara no call towards the end of the game? What they reviewed? Did you feel some type of way about it, or was it kind of just like you don't make that call in that moment?
I don't think you make that call in that moment. There was no intention, in my opinion, on that. It's something I've had a real problem with as I've watched more NBA this year. It's like you guys just don't judge intention at all, especially when it comes to like 3-point shooting and getting under a guy. I don't have a problem with that. I'm sure some fans were upset, but I mean, and just it was a physical game, like, and
Yeah, I think
honestly,
it's
he got away with 1-2 on a push off on that inbounds. Like, I appreciate Damian Fishback being like, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." I'm like, "Yeah, it was still a foul though." So I wasn't offended by it.
on the replay. It would have been so hard to escalate it. I mean,
Yeah,
especially a shoulder to the head is so much different than an elbow to the head. It's way less reckless. And I mean, I will say, like, it was a foul. It wasn't
right.
a flagrant foul. Like, there's absolutely no way they could escalate it. But it is kind of funny when a shot goes up and Akpara has position outside of the lane.
Mm-hmm.
Not for nothing. Like, he's not really a flopper. If he has position outside of the lane, and then by the time the ball lands somewhere, he's under the baseline holding his head, he probably didn't just trip.
Right. No,
But it would have had to have been called in the live ball situation. I think it's so hard to go to video and escalate that.
I definitely thought it was a foul. I did not think it was a flagrant, and I'm more okay with it not being a foul than if they called it a flagrant, if that makes sense. Like, I just think that's, if it's one or the other,
Yeah.
in that situation. I'd also say, I don't know what Pat Adams is doing. Why did it take 10 minutes to start the overtime period? Did you make some tea or something? Like,
I didn't understand it.
And yes, we have to record a podcast, so I was super annoyed by it. Maybe I don't notice that if we didn't have to record, but I'm like, we're like at minute 8. I'm like, are we going to start this? And then, of course, he takes the extra 30 seconds, so Nate moves 6 inches, and then he throws the ball to the Georgia side. It's like, great work, Pat Adams. You outlived your reputation here.
Yeah, he was game for it, I guess, tonight. I don't know. I mean, we're still in wait and see mode, but like you said, we're definitely leaning more towards we're not going to be having these bubble conversations. We're going to be firmly in the tournament. Could be a 5 seed. Like, who knows? We could be in danger with those early round games, but we'll worry about that later. Let's see what the rest of the SEC schedule looks like.
It should be noted too, I doubt this happens, Tennessee's favored in their on the next 11 SEC games. They're favored in 9 of them on KenPom. And the Kentucky game's literally a toss-up. So, if you beat Auburn, Mississippi, and you get Gillespie hot or Nate hot against Kentucky, all of a sudden you're talking, that's a 5-game win streak with Mississippi State and LSU and Oklahoma, 3 of the weaker teams in the conference. And now you're talking like, hey, this is probably an 8 seed. Now you're talking like, oh, hey, okay, maybe there's a 4 seed in this team. So, I mean, I think getting these 2 games was so vital to the season and what they could accomplish. And it was very important that they did that. So, great job by the team overall.
Really, really impressive. And I'll say this, as much as we have our frustrations, I guess you could say, with some of the offensive action, and this isn't like massive, it's just like we just want it to be a little smoother.
Mhm.
Teams have to hate playing us. There's no way it's
Oh, yeah.
enjoyable. There's no way it's enjoyable. And so we can kind of take that heading into more SEC play and take that heading into tournament time. It's like no matter what, you're going to be in an ugly dogfight. That's not the most effective strategy to win in basketball, but it's a strategy, and it's what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, it is a strategy. It's the hard way. It's like, hey, we're gonna run 55% of the time. It's like, okay, just know that makes your
Yeah,
life harder. You can do it. Just makes your life a little more difficult.
like you're going to need some turnovers. Like I think about it from the football perspective,
Yeah.
you're going to need turnovers, you're going to need this, you're going to need that. But if it works, you're going to make teams really hate to play you, and so we'll see
Hmm.
if we can continue to do that. Um, I think we shift. I think we start thinking about the football team again, and from the perspective this time of I'll frame it this way, and we'll dig into the specific hire. How much credence do you put into a sports performance or strength coach type of hire in college football? We hired Derek Owings. We hired him from Indiana. They won the national title. We'll get to that. And congratulations to them and the program that SIG is, rolling through people with. It was in place beforehand. Very obvious that it was in place beforehand. And some of those specific
Yeah.
details came out. It wasn't like we went and poached last minute. So I think props to the staff or Heupel or whoever else combined for setting this up and then targeting a guy and bringing that energy in. It was a lot of positive energy coming off that national title game. But how much credence do you put into it? As in, is there a Kool-Aid to enjoy the taste of, or is it kind of like, we'll see?
Important. Probably not as important with transfer portal era, I would say. I remember, man, who was the guy Butch hired? I can't
I'm gonna
remember.
look it up while you go.
I remember when he hired a guy maybe in year 3, and everyone was so excited because he had such a great reputation. And
Can I
or
say
maybe it
something
was,
real quick?
you know what? It might have been Pruitt's first hire. They might have pulled somebody.
When I went to hire Google who Butch Jones hired, um, I I Googled who Butch Davis hired. That's how much I've erased Butch Jones from my memory.
Fair. I think it might have been Pruitt's first hire. Maybe is who I'm thinking where the fan
Craig
base really got
Fitzgerald,
themselves.
Houston
That's
Texans
who it
strength.
was.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep, that was the guy. When they hired Craig Fitzgerald, I
And
remember everyone
I'm
was
sure people were excited about that.
yes, absolutely. And then, as you could tell, I couldn't remember who he was. So I think there's importance to it for obvious reasons, because if you think about it, other than your position coach, this is who you spend the most time with, especially in January and February. This is to become a 12-month sport now. So it is very important. And I'll talk more about the Tennessee part of it in a little bit. I think the transfer portal has taken away some of that just because player development is now no longer the king of college football. However, it caught my eye that they hired him for multiple reasons. One, Tennessee kind of rolled out the red carpet for him in multiple respects. They made sure that there was a video on him and him hiring and landing. They made sure that they basically posted a video of workouts every day, which is something they didn't do before. Like, you think about it. I mean, he is a budding star here. He's 32. He's won a national title. He's been with Signetti since 2020. He worked with Heupel in 2018. So there's a familiarity. You can't argue with his results. I mean, they've been, you've talked about how often Indiana plays like grown men.
Yes.
That's part of it. It's not just because he has a 23-year-old. You have a 23-year-old who, doesn't have muscle, then you're not going to win football games. So that's important. And I think it's paramount to mention that Signetti's the king, and his strategy and player acquisition ability is the reason they won the title. But I think it'd be ignorant to not mention Owens was in charge of a strength program that went from an FCS team, and they went 19-4 the first 2 years he was there. That's not all Signetti magic. That means your strength coach is putting in some work. And I think that's actually more of an argument for why Owings could be important than winning a national title.
Yeah, this is like the Scott Cochran, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This is like the newer version of this. And there's all sorts of these guys. And I'm definitely one. I think I've even said on this podcast that it is extremely difficult for me to buy into any sort of hype related to a strength and conditioning coach or program.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I think that's even amplified by it becomes a little bit difficult to tout your strength and conditioning program when so many of the guys that you're going to be targeting and so many of the guys that Sig was successful with were not in their program for that long. And so, and that's not a knock on it. Build your roster however you want to in this wild, wild west world. But I don't know. I guess I'll say it this way. I would so much rather it be good than bad.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
I would so much rather it be this like hype, has worked with hype before, brings all kinds of energy, is a really young guy. If players want to run through a wall for him, go for it. That's a big reason we hired the baseball coach we have, and I'm super excited about that hire. And so from that perspective, I'm all for it. But it doesn't mean that Tristan Keys is going to be Terrell Owens by fall.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%.
I think
people, it should be,
that's the kind of balance you have to strike with it.
Right. It should be mentioned too, they revamped it completely. They brought in 6 new people, they announced tonight.
And some were with him, I think.
Yeah, some were with him, but all of them, I believe, had some sort of ties to Owings. So they basically let him pick who he wanted. And again, I think it is kind of a, I don't know if it's going to have a real impact against Alabama in October, but I mean, it is kind of cool that he wins a national title and he's on campus less than 12 hours later.
Yeah.
I think that's like a pretty big message to your players. Like, I'm not messing around with this hire. Like, you better listen to him. And honestly, they probably needed to revamp it. When you think about the team this year, I thought the offensive line played well. Were they dominant at any point? Syracuse game, maybe. That's it. But they weren't dominant this year by any stretch. They didn't overpower any teams this year. We know how soft the defensive line was. They were a disaster. They got destroyed by teams that could run any sort of power play on them. And I think we got tired in games in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma looked the more conditioned team than us this past year in the fourth quarter. And again, I don't think the conditioning program was a disaster. I don't think it was a massive undertaking had to happen or anything like that. But it does feel like Heupel really wanted to make a statement and get a proven stud and revamp this thing. And if you're not going to have the best players, if you're not going to spend $20 million on your roster, okay, then go get the best strength and conditioning program you can get, because that's going to help cover up some of the deficiencies in player talent, because you can outwork, you can out-tough, and you can be stronger than other teams. So I think that's something that could be successful here if you're going to have the 6th best talent in the conference. But if you're the best conditioned, okay, that evens your odds to win a title better.
Yeah, 6th best talent in the conference, and we've talked about this before, a little bit stubborn in terms of, I hate to use this term, but it's the best one I got right now, like moneyballing the roster a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not just going to overpay for replaceable type of positions and blah, 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 blah. Maybe we get in that conversation more in the offseason of how we think about that. But then, okay, what can you do? Like you said, what can you do to raise that or even out that talent level? You can have the best offensive play caller in the country when he's willing to do it. And you can have a really, like, the most highly touted strength and conditioning program in the country. And then a really, really well-respected defensive coordinator who's there to be the defensive coordinator and make that his baby. That's how you even stuff out. It doesn't mean a guarantee. We know Jimmy's and Joe's have a really big impact on college football. But you got to fill in the fringes somehow. And if you're not going to do it with every stab at every piece of the roster, this is how you do it. And like you said, even if it's just someone who refocuses and puts a better focus on nutrition and strength or just toughness, which you
Mhm.
can't measure in a lab, just a different person to get in their ass before games or after games, then I'm all for it. Like, have a different voice there who's gonna. I mean, we talked about Brent Venables basically making people scared to be bad at football or scared to be low effort. That's fine. Have someone who does that, and I think Knowles and the combination of Owings can be a really effective combo there.
Reminds me of the Brewers with their pitching lab, and what David Stearns did in the late 2018 to 2022 era with the Brewers. Like, we can't afford big time pitching, so we're gonna basically create it in the aggregate with improvements in pitching labs and science and conditioning. Now, the counter argument to that is Yoshinobu Yamamoto's $325 million
Yeah,
arm got the
exactly.
last out of the World Series. So I guess that would be the counter. But I mean, you think about how I don't care who you are, and we'll get to Indiana in a second. You are a strength and conditioning coach for a 16-win college team in a season. You're doing something right. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Indiana had the least missed games in the
Yep.
Big Ten this year among their players. So the fact that not only did you bring in the strength and conditioning coach, you bring in the science guy and the trainers that were also associated with Owings, speaks to me that they're doing something right. And like you mentioned, I thought it was a great point. You'd rather it be right than wrong here, even if it's not perfect. So, I mean, could this just be January offseason hype? Absolutely. Could I not remember Derek Owings in 5 years like with Craig Fitzgerald?
Exactly.
Could totally be the case. But at the same time, I think it's a good sign that Heupel fired Banks and got Jim Knowles, and then looked at his strength conditioning program and said, we need to revamp it. I think that's a good sign. And then you combine the fact he changed the offense. At least Heupel's going to go out on his sword and not be like, hey, I was just too stubborn. Like, I don't have to hear that interview in 3 years. Like, I was just too stubborn. I should have changed things. At least he's trying new stuff.
Yeah, I think the two things, and then we'll kind of shift. Heupel, if we had fired Banks and not revamped anything and kind of gone bargain bin hunting for a defensive coordinator, like almost someone fell to us, or
Promote
Banks,
William Inge.
yeah, like we just promote William Inge and Banks does latch on at Virginia Tech, like we kind of predicted, and like that combination of things where it's like, did we fire him, or did he just want to peace out from this situation, and then we just let Inge, kind of the inertia goes to the next hire? That would have been a weird feeling, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we wouldn't have been able to specifically identify the difference in feeling, but I like this feeling more. I think the biggest difference is there are parts of our fan base, and I don't blame them for the excitement. There are parts of our fan base that think that this hire could raise things 25%. I think the max that this can affect is like 9%.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I'd rather be at 9, or if it actually does affect it that much, be at 25 than be at 4 or 21. And so I think where we differ is not in terms of excitement, but in terms of what we actually think it can affect. And so, you know, showing me a picture of, Fernando Mendoza at Cal and then Fernando Mendoza flexing while he's throwing a football at Indiana does not mean that Owings is going to make George McIntyre Dante Culpepper.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also the best hire we could probably make. And so I'm game for it in that way. With that in mind, Mendoza was super impressive. Indiana was super impressive. We did want to take a second to give them their props. They did the thing that I don't know what the timeline was on our prediction, because you made the prediction. I actually agreed. We didn't think anybody would go undefeated anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then Indiana was like, you might need to wait a year for that to come true. And we'll see if it ever does happen again. But
I did say SEC team.
Exactly. And so that schedule changes it. But I think everyone would have been like, SEC teams would have the best chance because they can sometimes stack talent in the most crazy ways. I don't know if we're going to see something like this again. And, every time you say that, it feels like something happens. But this was massively impressive. I thought it was kind of nice that they got tested and just passed the test.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of had a good feeling. Obviously, if you're an Indiana fan, maybe you wanted to win by 50. But
Really good football game.
Really good football game.
Definitely a top 10 title game we've had since BCS.
I think so. And the scenes of people, like, the poetry, I guess, of people watching this game in the basketball arena in Bloomington
Mm-hmm.
and going absolutely nuts when the Jumbotron is showing, not Jumbotron, whatever, is showing Mendoza's touchdown run. Like that is, it had to be such a cool time to be a student there, or
Yes.
someone who's been a lifelong fan. I work with someone who went to IU, and my wife works with a ton of people who went to IU. And so they've been like all a buzz, but it's someone a couple doors down from me in my building went to IU, and she doesn't care one way or the other about football. And that's totally fine. But she wore her IU football sweatshirt all week. And it was just
Right.
so cool. I was just like, this is awesome. And like her daughter was super excited about the team. Her daughter loves Mendoza. I thought it was super cool. This was one of those things that people are going to find a way to be cynical about, but this is actually what we like about college football. And don't ignore that. It was a pretty cool game.
It was a great game. I think the point, Indiana's not like the true underdog, right? This isn't James Madison, or George Mason in the '06 or Loyola Chicago. Now I just got chills from that shot that guy hit against Tennessee. I shouldn't have brought that up, but it's not that true of an underdog, but it's still a crazy story. I mean, this is a program that never mattered in college football. And then they hire a coach in 2 years, they're national championships. We've never seen this before. The closest thing is, Schellenberger at Miami. He took over a program that no one cared about, and I think by year 4 they won the national title. That's about the closest thing I could really compare it to, because all the other national champions at least had success previously. I will say this, the biggest takeaway I took just from a narrative, I mean, Cignetti killed the 4-year rebuild. It's over. You're not going to get 4 years anymore to build your program. If you're not competing by year 2, you're going to get like, well, Kurt Cignetti did it, so why can't you? In this new era. And I think that's a little disrespectful to Cignetti and what he's accomplished, because even with this NI transfer portal era, which officially kicked off in 2021, the national champions have been Georgia twice, Michigan, and Ohio State.
I know. Blue Bloods.
It's not like Texas Tech or Ole Miss, won the national title in 24 and 23. And it's like, okay, this is just the new way. I mean, this is the first non-blue blood to win a title, I guess maybe since Clemson in 16. And even then, Clemson was the ACC's, outside Florida State, best school in the ACC. So the fact that a bottom 5 school among these power teams for 2024 is able to do this in year 2 it's insane. And, I looked up Bill Snyder, because he's gotten the comparisons to Snyder, who I still think you can argue had the most remarkable turnaround in college football history. There's a great YouTube documentary on what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State that people should go watch, and realize that Kansas State was literally on the verge of being demoted to FCS. That's how bad it was. Snyder made a bowl and finished top 25 in year 5.
That's
now
crazy.
it's a different era, but it just shows you how supercharged this Indiana result is, and it wasn't that bad. And again, Cignetti's got these advantages, but it's still just I can't quite wrap my head around Indiana won the national title. It's still like new to me. And look, Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman. He's the number 1 pick. He's an excellent college quarterback. He's not Cam Newton. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not a Tim Tebow supernova at that position. So you take that into effect, take that factor in there. It blows my mind that Cignetti was able to do this so quickly. And it's not like Cignetti's this McVay hotshot young coach that changed the sport. Herbstreit mentioned it. They don't do anything that breaks the mold in terms of strategy. They just play the game. God, I'm going to sound like a geezer. They play the game the right way, and they're just so disciplined in what they do. It's just really impressive. And I can't speak enough about Cignetti and what he's accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, it was just ruthless execution, like ruthless execution.
I like that term. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
there were so many times. I don't know. The Miami game was a little more like they had to do some things out of structure. And Mendoza's run is, I think, the best example of that. But the other games were just like, we know your key. Like, we're going to see if you can stop it. And nobody could stop it. And that was them all season, save for a really close Penn State game. But I don't know. Like, it's going to seem like this was like predetermined, not predetermined, but like so doable because you have the Heisman winning quarterback he's going to go 1-1, and he's got like this affable, like weird personality where it's like, oh, like this was just like this team that was going to bring things together, blah, blah, blah. And he's pressed all the right buttons. Like they won like 2 games and 4 games in the years before he got here.
Mm-hmm.
And, the unexpectedness made me think of that Auburn team that won the title, where it was just like, oh, there's just one guy on the field who's so good that I
Right.
don't really know who's going to beat them. And that definitely wasn't Mendoza. But in terms of a college quarterback, he would not be early on who I'd pick all time. But in the playoff, he executed every flipping throw.
I mean, he was excellent in the playoffs.
He was
I'm not
so,
trying to
so
take it
good.
away from him. And, he reminds me so much of just, he's got a slight, although Goff was actually a good athlete in college. Like the Jared Goff just knows where to go with the ball, is not going to wow you, but can make all the throws. Just, he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. I believe that. But again, it's just not, he's not that Vince Young type of like, his athleticism is so much greater than people on the field. It's more where I was going with that.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And
And I'm with you. And it's not an offense, like you said, it's like, oh, Vince Young's running a read option. Like, is that even allowed? This feels like a
right, or
cheat
the
code.
motions with
Yeah.
Malzahn in 2010, where it was like, this feels like a different sport almost with Cam at quarterback.
Yep. And so I really was impressed with Miami. I was impressed that they were as game as they were. I mean, I've been one all year, and it hasn't been trying to be negative, but I just kind of thought that Malachi Tony would get figured out or just level off.
Oh my
And
God,
he
he's
just
incredible.
didn't do that. And especially for someone who's
Man.
technically a class younger, that is crazy work. He's so good. He's just that guy in so many ways. Their system of finding a quarterback at the last ditch moment seems to have worked again with Mensa, and so they'll be back in one way or another. There's a couple little parts of them that got exposed, like the offensive line wasn't maybe as athletic as it looked in earlier
Mhm.
weeks, and Indiana's so disciplined that sets the edge so well that they didn't get off on the run game except for the one time, and so and the last, as it came down to, like, one quarterback was better than the other quarterback, and it's the one we would have picked, and so it was just one of those that I was really impressed with Miami for not letting it get away from them
Yes,
and
especially after
keeping
the
it a
block
really
punt.
good football game. Yeah.
After the block punt, I thought it was over. I was like, this game's over. And Miami got the ball with a chance, and a pretty decent one,
Yeah,
because they got
pretty
the
darn
roughing the
good one.
passer. They got to midfield, and Beck got a little fooled. Got it's really the story of his career when you actually think about it. Just a little fooled, a little pressured, and a little panic, and they were able to. Indiana was able to seal the deal. But another great game. We need to do a top
Mm.
5 like championship games, or maybe do like top 10 playoff games, BCS era. I mean, we all know what number 1 is, but 2 through 10 would be fun. So
Number
that
1
might be
was,
something we could do.
Georgia TCU.
Shut up. Might be
Um,
the only college, that might be the only national title game I stopped watching at halftime.
I didn't watch the whole thing. I couldn't. It was so sad. So I will say this is the last thing on like the playoff in general, and I like that idea. We'll come back to other playoff games that have just broken our brains. I had this unique experience, and this is because Tennessee lost in the first round last year, and then all the Nico stuff, blah, blah, blah. My buddy, who's a Miami fan, and I don't know if yours experienced this in the same way, obviously was super bummed. We talked right before that drive for Beck. I said, if someone would have told you you have the ball driving to win, you're down by 6 at the start of the season, you would sign up for it 1,000 times out of
Mhm.
1,000. Like, sorry, this is going to hurt really bad, but you would take this every single time, even if you knew the result. And so he agreed with that completely. The thing that I didn't think about, they still had to deal with like everybody portaling and finding filling roster holes and losing staff, like after this way too drawn out playoff. Then they had to decide, who are we keeping? Who are we losing? What's going on with our
I know.
staff? Can we get a quarterback? I was just like, God, we have broken this timeline. And like, Indiana was going to get pilfered, like their staff. People should do it more, frankly. I'm glad we were one of the first movers on that. But to have to go through that as a Miami fan and then be like, okay, who's in the portal? It's just like, God, what a crappy feeling the next day.
Now, in pro sports, you get time. Like
Yeah.
the NBA is the only one that in NHL, like you get like 2 weeks at least, and then the draft kicks in. But like if you're like an NBA losing the NBA finals, like okay, the 30th pick of the NBA draft, like not really that big of a deal. But yeah, I mean, you think about that. By the way, college football national championship games January 25th next year.
What in the world are we doing?
Just put it at this point. Just put it between the conference title games in the NFL, the conference title game and the Super Bowl in the NFL. Just like
Yeah.
I mean, come on, what are we doing?
Just do
at
something
that
like
point?
don't have a Pro Bowl and do it then.
Exactly. It's just crazy. Speaking of stupidity in college sports, we have to talk about what happened in Tuscaloosa.
Yes. This is one of those that, and I do this with some of the stuff, I do. Admittedly, I do. Sometimes I just pretend this stuff isn't happening. And I don't mean that to say it's not important. I don't mean that to say like these decisions are sound or I like what's happening all the time. But there's times like with some of the Kiffin stuff, when it was like this major question / controversy about him and his staff and who's going and who's staying and what's it mean for Trinidad, I just had to be like, this isn't happening. Tell me what happens at the end. But this one, because Tennessee was involved, obviously, but just the blatancy of it was like, I guess we got to talk about this. This wasn't like happenstance. This seems like a dumb result. This had like, it seemed like every coach in the country and every fan base in the country was commenting on it. I don't know how in the past, I guess, year or so, there have been 2 different times where Tennessee, and I don't mean to say we're like perfect in this regard, Tennessee stood up to Nico, and then Tennessee was sort of the victim of this silliness where all of a single sport across the landscape was cheering for a fan base that admittedly is not always the most fun to get along with.
Yeah.
But twice in the past year, people have been like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for dealing with this. And it's like, well, good God, imagine if we had someone else to deal with this stuff.
Well, and the reason that we were talking about this, I had 2 people that believe in players getting paid and believe in the freedom of transfers. Tell me this was the final straw for them. This Charles Bediako situation, being eligible to play in January because an Alabama 6-figure donor judge granted him somehow a temporary restraining order, who has now recused himself from this case. But they told me it was the final straw. They're done. And I actually believe them. And we do this podcast as college sports fans. We do this because we still immensely care about Tennessee sports, football, basketball, and baseball. And it's almost like, do I have a limit? Is there a final straw for me?
It was a really good question.
I want to hear yours first because I took the coward's way out. I talked both sides of my mouth on it.
I'll say a couple things about it. First of all, I went to Bediako. This is not completely unrelated, but not an answer to the question yet. I went to Bediako's Wikipedia page because I wanted to see like what he was as a recruit. I was just forgetting the timeline on this stuff. High school, he went to a couple of high schools and then he went to IMG. Fine, whatever. College, Alabama, 2021 to 2023, 2026 to present. That's incredible. Anyway, that's amazing. I think that this for me is tied to how I experience it with my son because he loves sports. And I actually think that there's like there's only so much I'm willing to be like, no, son, turn off Illinois, Michigan, because we have to make a stand on, the state of college sports. Like,
right.
It's just sometimes fun to watch football, but, and baseball and basketball. The kid, like, I was talking to him the other day, and it was the first time I had caught him sneaking up to watch a game. I don't know if I told you this. I mentioned that Tennessee went to double overtime against Texas A&M, just off the cuff. I was making him breakfast. He goes, I know. This was like first thing in the morning. I was like, how do you know? And he got his eyes got really big, and he was like, I went and watched it. And I was like, what? And he was like, I only did it for a second. He was like, I just saw that it was in overtime. And so he loves it. But I really do, I could see a world where instead of the Saturday television in the fall being, the end of game day and picks and it's on and we're 4-box or channel flipping throughout the day, and then appointment television for the Tennessee game, just being appointment television for the Tennessee game, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is what it would translate to me, because the things like what Kiffin's been doing and the conversations around the transfer quarterbacks and the absolutely insane timelines that we're on, that even coaches are shouting about how stupid they are and nobody's listening. And frankly, I think the product being a little worse and the NFL product being really, I think, pretty good. There's a stretch where I think I could see myself purely soaking up Tennessee and just experiencing it almost like, those stretches where you're really enjoying your baseball team. I would know nothing about this lately, but you're really enjoying your baseball team, and it's like you almost don't even know what's going on around the league. You just know that your seventh inning guy you trust or don't trust.
Right.
Experiencing sports that way, where it's like I know absolutely everything about our roster and how I feel during a game. I have absolutely no idea what the Egg Bowl is going to look like, and I don't really care. I think that is where it would land for me, more so than just like turning the faucet off completely.
I am like that with college basketball right now.
Okay.
So my enthusiasm for college basketball has dwindled immensely the last decade. It's not just an NIL transfer portal issue. The transfer portal is worse in basketball because unlike football, where it's always been the big boys, like mid-major basketball, I used to stay up and watch like St. Mary's Gonzaga at like 11 p.m.
There's just
on
no
a
point anymore.
weekday. It's just no point because I'm like, I don't know who any of these guys are. Like, and it's just been, first off, the officiating in college basketball is awful, and it gets worse every year.
It was rough,
and it makes games games unwatchable. I mean, it's just, that's part of it. And then you bring in the NBA pace and space has slowly integrated. So you're playing like a style that's not actually like that pretty when it's not good in the NBA. And then you give it to college basketball and it's worse. And I mean, I watched like this game, the first half, I was like, this is a chore. This is a chore to watch this basketball
If that were Ole Miss, Georgia, you're not watching that game.
No, and like everyone knows Michigan's my second team or whatever. Like, Michigan's got maybe the best team in the country, and
they're really good.
I forgot they were on the other night. Like I didn't even pay attention. Now, part of it is my Pistons are having a miracle season, so I've just been watching more NBA basketball. But even still, like I used to all right, Michigan's on this time with Tennessee. If they were both on at the same time, I'd be like, man, that sucks. And I got to figure out, I got to watch both of them at the same time. Tennessee's going to be on the big screen, and I'll keep an eye on the other one. Like I don't even do that anymore. And like even in big time matchups, like I go stretches, it doesn't even look like basketball with the officiating and the space. And I know I sound like the old man yelling at the clouds. I really do. But this is a legitimate gripe. Like I enjoy NBA basketball. So I'm not just being like, I want Kevin McHale post-ups in my life again. But it's
a legitimate gripe that like something like this situation with Bediako, like just like whatever interest you have, it's just like, what am I watching here?
I don't watch G League basketball.
Yeah.
Why?
And it's like G League basketball is now like being conveniently reintroduced into the NCAA. I don't know. I think that's more of it. Like whether it's being a little older and being a little busier, or just knowing you don't have to watch every game, or more avenues for watching highlights, or I think for you and I, sometimes we can understand the combination of like a box score and advanced stats so well that we're like, we'll be able to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever. And I definitely take that approach sometimes, where it's like, I'll be able to kind of backtrace a little bit, even though we do like to watch. But when you have that already, and then you have amplifiers like the Bediako situation, like some of the silliness we see in college football, like extending the timeline for no reason, like the arbitrariness of the college football playoff committee, it just kind of makes you, again, I don't really see myself turning it off because I like watching sports. but it makes it so much less appointment television.
To answer the question that I proposed for college, and I'll get to my football in a minute. For college basketball, if they do a 128 team tournament, I'm out.
Oh my
That would be
God.
my final straw. It's bad enough they're doing 76. They're testing my limit. I just hate that they're doing the 76. So some crummy 18 and 11 power 4
That's why.
game can get in the tournament, and they get 100,000 extra viewers and they get more ad dollars, because that's the only reason they're doing this. But if they're like a full round is getting added, and they basically add every power 5 team that doesn't have a losing record in the dance, I'm done. That would be my final straw. At least with the tournament, 18% of college basketball teams get in, so it's still special. If you don't add that extra round, you're talking 35%. And it just makes it pointless. And the beauty of the tournament is the first day, the first 2 days,
100%.
the first round. Now it's, instead of 5-12, it's going to be like 5-20 or whatever. And, these power 4 teams are going to basically be playing, Tennessee, playing Mercer. And it's just like, this is pointless. Like, we're playing November basketball. That would be my straw for college basketball. If they went to 128 team tournament, I'm done.
Like, what's the point of following this journey?
Yeah, 100%. It's literally just watch. They're literally just saying, it doesn't matter until March.
Exactly.
All that matters is tournaments.
They're essentially saying, don't watch us.
Yes, exactly. I would be done. That would be my final straw. For football, I don't think I'll ever quit.
Do you think it's ever going to be a Tennessee-centric thing? Or do you think, like, the combination of Tennessee and, Michigan's going to be pretty good, that it's just like, that's Saturdays in the fall?
Yeah, Saturdays are too special for me. They're too ingrained in my psyche as a person, since I was 5-6 years old. Even as the sport grows into something that cannot be controlled anymore, I just don't think I'll ever quit it. Unless the only thing I could think of is 2 things. Morally, if they started playing 20-game seasons because of the dangerous ramifications of football, I'd be out. I couldn't justify college kids playing 20 college football games. 16's pretty, you're pushing
Crazy.
it. I mean, we're literally NFL regular season now. That might be the only thing. The other one was, if the SEC Big 10 picked apart the ACC and Big 12 and did their own 48-team league, I think
you'd still watch. It'd be pretty good football.
And honestly, I think you're right. I think I'd still watch. The value I get from sitting down and watching football for 12 hours on a crisp fall Saturday afternoon, especially when it's like October and I can go outside for 6 hours and smoke a couple cigars and drink my favorite beer, it's too important to me. I just don't think I can quit that.
I'll say this. You and I have talked about this, and obviously it's sometimes like a common refrain now. Something that could turn me off, it certainly has with college basketball, but something that could turn me off, as I almost knocked my microphone over, for college football, is if we really did, and this wouldn't shock me, if there was a very specific kind of gambling-related, very clear scandal that we don't have an entity to punish or follow up on or sweep under the, there would be absolutely no recourse. And to me, there's parts of that would land kind of like the handling of the Astros scandal did, where it was not even a slap on the wrist. Well, then what are we even doing here? I don't know, just something where it's like, oh, it has been uncovered that this stretch of games for these seasons were just set beforehand, and there's no recourse to ensure that it's not going to happen again.
I assume you're talking more like conference conspired or something like that.
Conference
maybe,
conspired or
referee scandal or something.
Referee scandal maybe involves betting, but also is very clearly.
We've already had a college basketball point shaving come out this year. 20 teams got affected. But I see your point, hey, if those are players, and honestly, it's probably been going on much longer and bigger than we even want to admit. It's just so much more accessible and people are dumber about it. But if referees got involved or something, I absolutely see that. I mean, there are still people I know that will not watch the NBA because of Tim Donaghy. So I totally get that.
Yeah, and the Astros thing still doesn't. I mean, I'm not trying to go back and have this conversation, but there's still parts of that where I'm like, that really just that was just allowed to happen, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny that the public shame was greater punishment than what actually the actual punishment was, and even then, it's kind of. I mean, Carlos Beltran is
He's a
getting
Hall
in
of
the Hall of
Famer.
Fame, and he literally was the ringleader of it, and it
I
was like,
saw somebody. I saw
he gets
somebody
punished for 3 years.
questioning the. I saw somebody questioning the Chicago Cubs like moral compass because they signed Bregman in the
Mhm.
same week that Carlos Beltran got elected to the Hall of Fame. I'm like, we got
Well,
to choose here, guys.
I know. Well, and I'm not going to go. Well, I could say something about Bregman's slugging percentage, but I'll ignore that.
Well, this will be
We're a
off.
Tennessee
Yeah, we'll
podcast.
get there. There's
Yeah,
plenty of
that's off-season talk.
baseball.
I absolutely could see your point. Or if it came out that like the conference conspired
Yes,
something like that to get a matchup, absolutely. I remember
I'd be like,
those two.
that would lead me to like, why am I watching?
Right. No, I totally get that. I don't think that's happening, but I mean, there were some years in the 2000s where it was like, are we sure
Are
that
we
the referee?
sure?
Do you remember, was it 2008, that Florida Arkansas game? There was a famous Florida Arkansas game where it was like Petrino's maybe it was Petrino's first year or something. 2009, maybe. I remember Tebow was there, and it was absolutely. I mean, there was one of the first times I ever thought like a sporting event was rigged. Um,
Yeah.
Something like that, where it was, and they got leaked out, might do it for me, but I don't know. I just don't know if I could ever give up my Saturdays.
The interesting thing, and I'll see if I have time to do that this week. To do this in the next week or next couple of weeks, I'd be interested to hear my dad's answer on this.
Mm-hmm.
My dad sometimes, and I love him. He's why I love sports. Like those Saturdays with him when I was growing up, like it's the same vibes. But it's funny, like sometimes he will go through stretches where he's like, "Oh, is who's going to be good in college football this year?" But then, like 2 weeks in, he'll be like, he'll very clearly have done some digging on it. Like he's a very like
Right.
numbers oriented guy. He'll like go from, "Oh, they're playing football again this year," to being like, "I think Indiana has the inside track and Fernando Mendoza." Like he invests a little more than he lets on sometimes, which is totally fine. And the same with Tennessee, where he's like, "Oh, we'll see what the boys do," but he's like, he still has a VHS of the Sugar Bowl against Miami. Like he loves this stuff,
Right. Exactly.
and so I'm wondering for him. I'm thinking about my son to me and me to my dad. I remember sneaking up and watching Reggie Bush against Fresno State and getting caught and getting in trouble. And my dad, like, sort of giving me the evil eye, but looking at me like, I can't blame you, dude. It's Reggie Bush. Like, he was kind of going off that game. And
That was
so,
my 2006 Rose Bowl for me.
yeah, there you go. And so I wonder what his path has been with, like, I think anybody who goes through all of the stuff that we go through in sports, college and pro, and doesn't have a moment of like, man, some of this stuff is stupid. It's just kidding themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think it'd be interesting to hear if he has a final straw or if he's just had times where he's like, I was just sick of it for a while. And he loves football and he loves basketball. So I might pick his brain a little bit about that. He'll probably say something like, "You were a pain in the ass and I had to dedicate some time to parenting you," which is a fair answer, I think.
I was thinking about actually the other day my grandfather who passed away 15 years, who loved Tennessee, who literally had every game that wasn't pay-per-view on VHS in the
Yep.
90s recorded. And like he totally would have been like, as soon as I got paid, would have quit. Like, no doubt about it. That's the type of guy he was. And I'm thinking like, if like I could talk to him today, I'm like, how would I even describe what it would be? Would it literally just break his brain? Like, I think it would almost like, he'd be like, wait, what do you mean some kid can play 6 years
Yep.
and then go to 4 different schools? What do you mean Tennessee has a kid that played at 3 different SEC schools on their basketball team in a 4-year period? What do you mean they got some 23-year-old kid who played in the Israeli league for 5 years and he's a sophomore? He's a sophomore. He's got 3 years of eligibility. Like it I think would break his brain. And yeah, I think that I just football, I'll just be honest, I don't think there's ever going to be a final straw for me unless, like I said, they do like a 20 game schedule or something like that. But basketball, It's getting closer and closer.
teetering, and this was another kind of
Steering.
maybe nail in the coffin a
Yep.
little bit.
Yes. So I agree.
This has given me some ideas for some offseason conversations, especially around baseball, because for me, my baseball team, I don't think qualifies as a professional baseball team heading into this season. But that has not led to me not wanting to watch baseball. It has basically been like, I'm going to be watching a lot of Tennessee baseball.
I'm
And
almost
so,
replacing college basketball with college baseball.
yeah, the shift is there. And so that we'll do a college baseball preview, and the season is nigh. And so,
Oh, it is. Yeah.
yeah, it's very soon, and there's things to be excited about. And so that kind of gives me the idea of like kind of shifting gears in terms of how we allocate our interest in pro versus college across all sports as an offseason conversation. Maybe do a pie chart for both of us with
Hmm.
that. The one thing we have coming up that we know we have coming up is the Super Bowl. We've got a matchup. We've got Seahawks Patriots, and we can talk all we want about like both of these teams had crazy odds of being here. I thought that the Patriots would be better. Vrabel's a good coach. I thought that the Seahawks were being really pretty clearly underrated. I think it was just because
Hmm.
of the division they were in. But that defense was, I think, bound to be kind of nasty, and then it proved to be really true. Do you have any thoughts on the playoffs thus far, or a lean in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think the Seahawks are clearly the favorite. I would say that. I would say great playoffs too.
For
Just
sure.
fantastic NFL playoffs that we've had. Good storylines. Incredible that the NFL survived without Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Shout out NFL, the underdog league when you really think about it. I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I think it's a great story. I really do. Um, Mike McDonald's got a chance, I think, to be special as a coach. I think he could be like the defensive McVay, in
Yeah.
terms of his impact on the league. And I'm going to do a non-fun conversation, but it's worth having real quick because we don't like to compliment rich people that don't play the sport or coach the sport or make the personnel decisions. But I kind of have to think, is Robert Kraft the greatest owner in sports history?
If you look at, I mean, unless there's got to be some NBA stretches that would problematize this argument, like with
It,
the
I
Celtics
looked up
runs
a
and things like that.
couple. There was the owner who bought Babe Ruth owned the Yankees from 1915 to 1939.
Pretty
So
good
that's
little
a lot of
stretch there.
exactly. But here was the case. So he's made a Super Bowl in 4 different decades. He's done it with 3 different regimes, 3 different quarterbacks, 11 Super Bowls, won 6, maybe 7, and employed the greatest head coach and quarterback of all time, although not a Hall of Fame
Not a
coach.
Hall of Famer, but a really
Yeah,
good coach.
really good coach. Did it within 35 years. And he saved the franchise from being relocated
Yeah.
multiple times and bought the team to prevent them from moving with the largest purchase ever at the time. That's a hell of a resume as an owner.
And my logic on this stuff, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not. My logic on athletes pretty much is that the current best is the best of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sport is more difficult. Every bit of training is better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I make some exceptions, and we can talk about it maybe in an off-season conversation. But like the best wide receiver ever
Mm-hmm.
is probably the best wide receiver that's going right now. Now, Jerry Rice makes this a massive problem, blah, 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 blah. But if I extend that logic to sports ownership, what Robert Kraft has done is more impressive than what the Yankees did,
Right.
because
Or
of the
what,
league structure and all these other things. And the structure of America at the time.
yeah, like telling Red Auerbach, hey, I don't have a problem if you employ black players, while very brave and deserves credit, also does not make you a genius.
No, it's like, oh, we're trying to win. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the other thing. This is already a conversation. He's already one of the names you have to put on there, if not like the clear favorite. And all these flipping vibes heading into this game are like, oh, yeah, Seahawks, kind of a shoe-in. If they just go and win again
I know.
with this young quarterback, and, it's slightly different. It's not the exact same matchup as when they won their first one as like the nobody team. It's, I think, a very different team that they're up against, but maybe not as good a one. And so I think about all this, and then I think about them just going and winning, 21-19.
Mhm.
with an MVP quarterback, and I'm like, what? Like, is this ever going to stop?
Yes, that's very true. It's the other thing I wanted to mention about the coaches, about the previous coaches. It's hilarious that Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick just together had maybe the worst week. You'd think if Carroll, you trade for Geno Smith instead of just signing Sam Darnold. Whoops. The franchise you leave that you were the best coach in franchise history makes Super Bowl 2 years after you. And then, you get fired from the Raiders after 1 year. And then Belichick doesn't make the Hall of Fame. Brady's better than him in the TV booth now. And Robert Kraft made a Super Bowl 2 years after you. It's funny to take the last Super Bowl matchup when Carroll's about to go back to back, or Belichick's about to cement himself as the greatest coach ever, and then both these guys have like really bad weeks in contrast with their current franchise. It's just interesting dynamic.
Very interesting. I think that I feel like the Seahawks are going to win, which makes me really worried about that game. If I
Yeah.
felt like it was going to be about even, but it's like I trust that Seahawks defense so much, I would almost feel better. But the fact that I'm like, oh, like Darnold's going to continue to play consistently, and then Walker's been looks really good, and that defense looks really good, just makes me think it's going to be something stupid.
I agree. Also, snow games. Awesome. Shove it, people. Stop it. Stop it. What's wrong with you? And I say this as someone hoping for 12 inches of snow this weekend. So
yeah, oh, gosh, the ice skating rink that I shoveled earlier, that was absolutely. So we'll see. We're going to get a little bit more snow, but not too much more.
So assuming that snow apocalypse doesn't happen, we'll be back next week.
Yeah,
and we got a baseball preview coming up. I really need to get going studying on that.
I have some of like the key components, but the fringes I need to study up on as well.
And then we got recruiting finishing up, and we're going to do a whole episode on that. So that's going to be good stuff. So just a little peek into the future for you guys and what we're going to do in the month of February.
Yep. And we've got obviously basketball keep rolling. We'll talk about the NFL as the season comes to a close. And then I do think we'll actually probably do some draft talk as well. I think Z and I always have some takes on this stuff and always have some fit ideas and who would fit with the Lions and that type of conversation. And so I think we'll have just as good a hit rate as some of the experts on some of this stuff. And so I'm excited to dig into that, see who our favorites are, and then see who we just don't really have a lot of faith in that is still high on draft boards. Other than that, I appreciate y'all rolling with us, and there's still exciting stuff to come, I guess is what we'll say. We'll definitely talk college baseball. We'll probably sprinkle in some Major League Baseball, and then we'll do some minor league baseball when we talk about the Nationals. And I'm excited for spring as we sit with ice everywhere right now.
Appreciate you guys listening. Please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you guys listening. We're excited to keep this up throughout the year, even as college sports kind of winds down a little bit. Get some college baseball talk in. We'll definitely get some college basketball in as the season continues. Appreciate you guys, and go Vols.